it was never that wasn't the plan. Like, I'm going to work my butt off so I can chill out later.
Right.
It was just, we just felt like the adrenaline of a show carried us into the next show. There was a stretch where we did 98 shows in 102 or 3 days or something ridiculous like that. And that seems absolute suicide right now to me. But then it's, first off, it's a blast. And we just, it was really, the connections we were making with people were really meaningful. It was about the people, really. And I think if business is done right, hopefully it's about connections with people, and they'll keep coming back for that. And that means a lot. I mean, and I think that's what fueled it, is having more interactions with people. And that'll probably be what feels the best about going back out. Not like, my checking account looks better because I'm touring again. Like, nah, my heart and soul is my head's better because I'm hanging out with people, not because they love what I'm doing, because we all love the same thing. And we're just like, we're all in this together kind of thing,
Welcome to the RockstarsRocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Get this party started. All right. And let's see. Hold on. I always forget to turn my notifications off and shit comes in.
Yeah, I may or may not have that going on.
Oh, you're fine, but I shouldn't have it on. Still may come in. Okay. All right. We ready?
Yeah, man.
In 3, 2. Hey, rock stars. Welcome back to another episode of Rockstars Rocking. And boy, do I have a rock star, the rock star of all rock stars. And this is a Rockstars Rocking podcast first. We actually have a literal, genuine, touring rock star on my show. My good friend, Pat McGee, leader, founder of the Pat McGee Band, worldwide known with a cult following and 11 albums. I just found out 11. I thought it was 10. I'm such an asshole. I must not own one of them. So I got to fix that. Welcome, Pat.
Hey, how's it going? Good to be
man.
here.
Hey, man, it's great to have you, man. I really appreciate it. This is kind of cool. I don't want to be all stalkerish, but I've already told you. I mean, my wife and I, Megan, we've been following you since the early days, or what I would call the early days. I know you guys started in the mid-'90s. I first discovered you in 1999. Thank you to my college roommate, Jared Heinrich, who I haven't talked to since college. But that dude, I remember walking into the room and he literally said, or the music was playing. I said, "What is this?" And he's like, "Oh, you got to follow these guys. It's incredible." And he's from the DC, Virginia area. And I was hooked from that moment on. So thank you, Jared.
Hey, thanks, Jared. That is a common story where a roommate or an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, or maybe they're still together, which is pretty awesome. They got somebody into the band because back in the mid-'90s, if you went to college between 94 and 2002 and you had any semblance of a social life, you probably saw the band, or at least was in a fraternity house in the early part of that,
right?
Or an outdoor quad party, and then eventually the venues that were in the major cities near those colleges, because we kind of put a no more fraternity party rule, so which was, I think, a good call at the time. But yeah, that's I love hearing those stories about how people. I think that's why you mentioned it's a cult following. That's
a compliment.
It's great. No, I appreciate it. I'll take that. I was talking to my daughters about, how music is such a stamp on the time in your life, how much you listen to it. And with, yes, we did put out our 11th album, and we're super proud of it. And I think it's the best thing we've ever done. I'm always going to say that because why would we not? Why would we not press print if I didn't think it was as good? I really feel strongly about that. I think that applies to work. You're not going to hand in some half-assed, assignment to someone because you got to put your best foot forward, but I'm also aware that someone who listens to this record 2 records ago is probably I'm most proud of this one I did, but this was the last one, and with the original guys, which was the most fun, and we can get into that. But I am also aware that when you listen to the really early stuff, you were in college. You had nothing to do but sit around and blast tunes and get ready to go out on every night.
Well, quite frankly, we listen to that classic stuff from the Wood and Revel. We listen to that probably more in our house than we do even the new stuff.
Yeah, and I get that.
You hear that a lot?
Yeah, because it takes you back. It's like you're so there's of touring bands that I kind of roamed around with back in the day in the Virginia scene. If it's Fighting Gravity or Gib Droll or Everything, Eddie from Ohio, Carbon Leaf. These are bands, Agents of Good Roots, all these bands that we spent, 5 years following around in vans. Those early records just take me back big time. So I totally get that. I can't hey, press play on this Sugar Packet record all summer long, and then eventually it'll be your new association. But the distractions now with kids and life in general, when you're in your 40s or 30s, whatever you are in your life, if you're a fan, you're probably in that world. You don't have the time to soak in music like you did before. But yeah, we're proud of what we're still putting out there. I'm tight with the Toad the Wet Sprocket guys, and their last record is incredible. And I know it's not going to get the love that the early ones got and I get it. You hear that. Walk on the Ocean and all those early songs that are so great. They take you back to college. But yeah, you should, find the time to listen to the new stuff too. And, we just appreciate you listening to it, honestly. So, yeah.
We'll talk about that because that's always a question you've had asked many times, I'm sure, right? How do you feel about when you do a live show? Back when we were allowed to do live shows, we'll talk about that. But when you do a show, you're always asked, to play Rebecca and Shine and haven't seen for a while. I'm the guy that says, play that shit. It's the good shit. Does that ever get old where you just want to play your new stuff?
No, because I grew up a big fan of Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead, and just, bands that did different shows every time I went to see them. And I didn't really care what they were playing. But I 100% get that our fan base, we didn't tour with the Dead. So we can't just go in there and be like, I'm just going to play all these deep cuts, because I've seen that happen to other bands, and people leave and they're like, what the hell? Truth be told, I love playing Rebecca. I love playing Shine. I love playing, Girl from Athens and stuff like that. There's that old stuff, especially when it's the band, because we've played Rebecca 5,000, 6,000 times, and we always play it differently. Like I played it the other night on a virtual show. I didn't even know what I was doing. Like, what is this version? I'm like, it's still, changing. You won't hear if you love the CD, that's great, but it's not going to sound like the CD when you hear me play it, because unless you hear the original band play it like at the Birchmere in DC or something, we might really try and lock down the radio version. But for the most part, I like to explore it, but I'm never pissed to play those old songs. That's where they got me where I'm at.
Dude, my favorite is when you play a real old song that everybody loves, and then you, without stopping, you turn it into a cover or another song, and people are like, whoa. And then we forget you're still in the middle of Rebecca, and 7 minutes later you finish it up, and I'm like, wow, where'd that come from? Like I totally get lost in the new song. Yeah.
And then that's me. Just every cover we've ever done has been a in the moment thing. We've never, it's no lie, we have never practiced a single cover song. It's just not something we like to do. We'd rather just, hey, I don't even say, hey, tonight we're going to go into, Fly Like an Eagle by Steve Miller, or In Your Eyes, or, Peter Gabriel, or we've done like what's the Paul Simon thing we used to do all the time, Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes. But then I love that whole Graceland record, so I'm like in the middle of Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes. I'm like, oh yeah, let's sing You Can Call Me Out. Oh yeah, let's sing Graceland. Oh yeah, let's sing, whatever at Cecilia, and let's throw in some Simon and Garfunkel. I'm like on this wild roller coaster of like, what else do I know in that tiny brain of mine? And they just follow along, Now, these days where people are making a living putting cover songs online, which is cool, they've got it all polished and perfected. And it's not really something I would, want to go down. I like the moment that you're talking about where it's like, in the moment, let's play this other thing, see what, because I'm thinking of it, so it's going to come out of me.
Well, it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, believe me, it comes out of nowhere for me too. It's not a plan.
Dude, do you agree? I've listened to a lot of interviews with musicians all over the world where they'll say that they're original songs. So Your Rebecca, as an example, it's like your first kid. Do you consider it like your child in some respect?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And I sometimes I look back on them like I'm like, oh man, those lyrics were so cheesy and like yeah, but like some of this stuff I listen to now, I'm like, that's the same. Like my daughter's playing guitar; she's 16, and she played me a few songs that she really digs, and I'm listening to the words. I'm like, these are just like words from like Motown songs and like songs that were very simple, direct to the point lyrically, but they're delivering them in a sort of emo-y kind of like dark way, and it's totally fine. I don't know. I'm like, well, that was a time in my life, to be totally honest. Haven't seen for a while. Rebecca, all that stuff is like brutal honesty. Nobody to tell me, hey, what did you mean when you said that? Like, this is just, I'm just going to write from a standpoint of a 20-year-old kid who's in college.
Was there an actual Rebecca? And I know later, as you had kids and a wife, you put their names in the songs. I get that. But
Yeah.
prior to that,
No, Rebecca, and I said to my daughter when she went off to college, she's a freshman in college, and I have another one going in next year, which is crazy. I don't know how we got there, but I said, don't be a Rebecca when you go to college. That was like me being a third, fourth year student at the time. Well, I'd been there for that long. I was not a junior or senior in credits because I was never in class, but I just was watching freshmen and sophomores and how they were behaving in the party scene. And I sort of lumped it into one person. And the school was so small, Longwood College down in Virginia. Now it's much bigger and I think it's a university. But back then everybody knew everybody. So I'm like, I can't really pick a certain person out. That's not cool. And I don't look back and go, it's that girl or that girl. It was a bunch of girls acting a certain way, very just self-entitled and clueless, and like they own the place and they don't. And so that was that song, Rebecca. I just didn't want to offend anybody. And so
I always thought it was like an ex-girlfriend or some shit.
No, people don't listen to the words, and if your name's Rebecca, they're always like, that's my jam. Like, that's not a very nice song. So
That's true. That's true.
They say it
That's a
all the
good point.
time. They're like, man, that's my anthem. I'm like, do you know that I'm like ranking on her? But that's it is what it is.
So talk about that. So you went to school, right? You what were you studying? Like, was there a musical major? Like, what did you want to be if you ever grew up? Like you said, you were in college a little bit longer and you didn't have enough credits. Yeah. Like, was this what you wanted to do?
I went off to college. My brother was leaving college and I was heading in. So he's 4 years older than me. And we had a little acoustic cover band that we were traveling all over the place playing. He was going off to Scotland to be a physical therapist, get his master's over there. So it was kind of forcing me to be on my own. I definitely never was like, oh, I'm going to do this forever. It was, plus I hadn't written any songs yet. So it didn't occur to me that you could be like a young artist and write your own music. I didn't know anybody that did that. So I was in school I had music as a minor, but I remember being in the classroom first day and they went around the room. I went to Elon down in North Carolina for the first semester of college. And they went around the room and they named like everyone's experience, and everyone was like first chair cello, opera singer, blah, all these like very fancy titles for musicians. And I'm like, I played Jimmy Buffett covers in a bar. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't read music. I never took lessons. So I really was a fish out of water, even in music. So it didn't speak to me, and I kind of backed out of it as soon as I transferred schools. I was like, I'll take some music classes for fun, which ended up being a little bit of a nightmare. That's a funnier story, but yeah, I just never really had a plan B, to be honest with you. This just sort of morphed into like, oh, I'm playing twice a week. Oh, I'm playing 4 days a week. Oh, I'm playing every night. And I'm all over Virginia, centrally located. I could go to all the different universities and play in their bars or the sorority functions or like just some solo acoustic guy. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until I played a house gig in Richmond at this place called Castle Thunder across in the flood zone, just a burrito bar. And I played in there 5 hours, made $100. I was like, this is great. Free burritos. I would make, at the time I was in a fraternity, but I was never there. I don't think the only parties I ever went to were the ones I played at. So I was very not associated with the fraternity, but it did allow me to pledges, and pledges would drive my vehicle around. It was kind of great. Like,
That's
and
awesome.
the pledges loved it because they're like, sweet, a night away from the brothers, and I don't have to be around the university tonight. So they drive me to Richmond, but anyway, long story short, Dave Matthews is playing across the street, who I'd never heard, didn't know any of their music. Just occurred to me that they have a huge line every week, and I saw Carter at like Load In, their drummer, and he had CDs. I'm like, oh, you guys recorded a CD? And he hands it to me. He's like, yeah, check it out. I'm like, and I looked at him like, whose songs are these? I was like a dumbass, like I didn't know. And he's like, oh, this is our music. I'm like, oh, I'll check it out. And I, at that point I was, just living in the land of what classic rock cover could I learn this week? Like a new song would have been like a Counting Crows song. That would have been like modern rock.
Sure.
So I credit the Dave guys with at least opening my eyes to the fact that you can write your own music. And so that was really like eye opening. I just went, oh, and my friend produced it. I knew the guy who produced the record up in Northern Virginia. Like, oh, John Alasia produced this? That's cool. So I went down that path of like, shit, I'm gonna write my own songs. And Rebecca, first song I wrote, second song I haven't seen for a while. And then there you
Classic.
go.
Dude, so it's cemented for me. A lot of people might think that actors, actresses, entertainers, musicians, famous folks, even locally famous, that they're not approachable. And I was already following you. We'd seen a ton of shows, and then where I went to school, Towson University, they booked you to play down where the bowling alley used to be, and I happened to work there. And
Oh,
I was so pumped. I got a free show because I was working that night. And my manager said, you sure you want to work? Like you can still go for free, but you don't have to work. I know you like the band. I'm like, no, it's cool. And what cemented it was, I actually remember loading you and the band in. I was helping you
oh my
move from the
God.
van to the stage, et cetera. And at the end, and you and the band, you were all so cool. Like you were helping yourself. You're doing everything you need to do. And then flash forward, seen you 50, 60 times, met you a few years ago directly at my buddy Jeff's house. You played a house party for him up in Garrett County, Maryland. Flash forward 2-3 years later, I remember messaging you and Jonathan about our anniversary, and we were going to be at the Wrecker. And I just wanted you to call us out and say happy freaking anniversary. And you were like, "Come on up on stage." My wife was mortified. I still got the video. We danced in front, right on stage at the
At the
Ram's
record.
Head.
Oh, at the
No,
Rams head.
I
Oh
meant
yeah,
Ram's
yeah,
Head.
yeah.
Sorry, at Ram's
Yeah.
Head. Wasn't Wrecker.
Oh
Seen you
yeah.
there a million times though. And then flash forward a couple of years later, you came to my house. My wife surprised me with I like to say 2-9, if you remember that big poster, but my 40th birthday party.
Uh-huh.
So I just saw you this past September, and let's talk about that, because you said that was the not my birthday party. Let's talk about the show. I know I saw all the back emails. That was not easy to pull off. I give her credit and you credit.
Yeah.
That was the first and maybe only show you did, or one of the only shows you did live in 2020.
Yeah.
Talk about the effect the pandemic's had on you, on not only you and your band, but the industry in general.
Jeez. I mean, yeah, your show was the only one I did after they pulled the shade down on us and said, nope, no more shows. it's been unbelievable. I haven't been home like this since before I went to college, like honestly. So it's been a year that haven't left these walls, and other than to come to your walls, and that was a great day, man.
It was a
And
little
honestly,
cold.
it was a little. I will say that you go down in the record books for one of the coldest gigs I've ever done. But you know what? We were so happy to be there and be a part of your family event. That was cool. But yeah, it's had its mostly cons, but there's definitely some pros as far as me being home and being around my kids as much as possible, especially with some going off to college. It's nice to like be here, especially be here for them during this time because it's a tough go, man. It's like kids. My daughter lost her senior year. Both of them lost their senior year, and they're into sports, and they lost those seasons. And I have one who's a freshman, and she's like, "Oh my God, this is just brutal." So to be there for them to be that rock as much as you can do it without downplaying it and look on the bright side. You can only do that so much. It gets exhausting, right? But I don't know. It's been tough. I have so many artist friends who are struggling, and not only that, they're like struggling mentally to be like, I don't know how to be home this much. This is really, it sounds like a weird thing to say to someone, but like it's messing with people mentally. They're really freaking out. They're like, I don't, and then I'm excited to go out on the road again. It feels like it was 10 years ago. I mean, like, I know it'll feel great when we really get to do it like we used to do it. Hopefully one day that'll be the case, and it'll feel like, not just like, are we allowed to do this? As opposed to, we're good. And this feels amazing. And I think people are going to really appreciate just being around other people and being around other, live art. Because this is all cool, and this has brought a lot of people together that wouldn't necessarily have been together. So I think there's been a lot of pros on that. But
Dude, I said to my wife, I said, good, bad, or indifferent, I truly believe the pandemic, without it, as bad as this sounds, good for me, she never would have been able to get you down here. You would have been on the road somewhere. I mean, you do 250 shows a year.
yeah,
I know you did some house gigs here and there throughout the last many years, but that never would have happened. That wouldn't have been a surprise for me.
yeah, it would have been tough. It probably would have been like, I'm available on a Tuesday afternoon.
Right. And you happen to be in the area. So I know the
Yeah.
birthday's at end of September, but can you do middle of August? That's the closest we're going to be to you.
Sure. Yeah. No, I was happy to get in my vehicle and drive down there. It was like, oh yeah, this is what my Easy Pass is probably like. I'm blowing the dust off of it. Like the thing works
true.
still. So yeah, it was a nice little drive down there, and it's all good. Happy to be there.
So you talked about you've been home now, you're with the family, you're with the kids more than you have been in quite a while, based on your travel schedule. I look at your travel schedule, really no different than any other entertainer, but certainly not even like myself. There's been times over my years, not as extensive as you, but I would have considered myself a road warrior in business. So I have a lot of folks that are listening to this that are business folks, entrepreneurs, business owners, executive salespeople, and they can relate to that. They're on the road, not like you, but they're literally away from their family weeks on end every month. And they can appreciate that. So I guess my question is, talk about the travel impact that it's been with your family over the years, pre-pandemic. Like, is that just something when you met your now wife, your girlfriend, where you just kind of said, look, I'm a musician, I'm not going to always be around. And what's that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was just always kind of the norm, especially in the very early days. I was really gone a lot back then. 95 to 2005. That was like the huge, like never home kind of thing. And that laid the groundwork for being able to be a little bit more relaxed now. So I'm happy I put in that work in that time, and I'm grateful for it. But yeah, I mean, the travel, it's just a normal thing for us. And I think it'll definitely make me, when I'm talking to my agent now, he's like, well, how much do you want to travel? I'm like, well, I've been digging this home thing. So like, I don't know, 5 to 10 shows a month, if that, like maybe less. Maybe I'll take a month off. Like it can't all be about finances. It has to be about some balance and, make the best choices for the family.
Now, would that be the answer had there been no pandemic? Were you, I don't know, were you still doing 200 plus shows a year, or
I
were you
wasn't doing
doing the?
200. I was probably doing like 125. But I have those two festivals that I do, one in North Carolina and one in Rhode Island. So they take up a lot of time. They're about a week apiece in the spring and fall, but they also a lot of planning, and that's all usually at home. So, and I've enjoyed sinking my teeth into that. And I'd rather do one or two more of those a year and have 3 or 4 festivals. Basically, I call them festivals, but they're just like destination concert, but really based on like travel and culinary world and just highlighting the coolest parts of an area that I may have visited 40 times over the last 20 years and I think are great, and I want to highlight that to somebody else. We're usually not going to obvious, hey, let's go to the Bahamas. Like, that's an easy sell. I'm always looking to turn people onto something, an experience that they haven't had before. So I love doing that. That's something I can see as I get older, just sort of morphing into that. And then the live shows are kind of just like, I'll go ahead and do, I don't know, 35 to 50 a year, and use those as almost like advertisement to come be with me at this other thing. So, it's a good time, and I like to share those experiences with people.
Yeah. Well, what you described about your first 10, 12 years or so building it, which has allowed you to be more flexible later on in your career, it's no different than myself. There's so many people listening that are going to relate to that because, dude, I didn't, I just a workaholic in my first 10, 15 years in the business, 10, 12 years in the business. And now I'm on my own schedule. I'm not on autopilot, but what I spent all that time building is no different than what you did with respect to getting, in my case, the business going. And there's so many people listening that, I would just say, and I assume you'd agree, if you're just starting out, if you're younger, even if you're not younger and you're building a business of some sort, it's the same thing. You put in the effort now so you can enjoy the fruits of that effort later.
For sure. And depending on what the job is, with me, it was never that wasn't the plan. Like, I'm going to work my butt off so I can chill out later.
Right.
We just felt like the adrenaline of a show carried us into the next show. There was a stretch where we did 98 shows in 102 or 3 days or something ridiculous like that. And that seems absolute suicide right now to me. But then first off, it's a blast. And we just, it was really the connections we were making with people were really meaningful. It was about the people, really. And I think if business is done right, hopefully it's about connections with people, and they'll keep coming back for that. And that means a lot. I mean, and I think that's what fueled it is having more interactions with people. And that'll probably be what feels the best about going back out. Not like, my checking account looks better because I'm touring again. Like, nah, my heart and soul is my head's better because I'm hanging out with people, not because they love what I'm doing, because we all love the same thing, and we're just like, we're all in this together kind of thing,
I get it. So let me ask you a question. What again, I try to relate it back to where the audience can appreciate. Over the years, you've lost some what I would call focal central core members to the original band, folks that my wife and I just loved and all your fans loved. And I'm not talking about getting into why they left or vice versa. That's not the question. The question is, how do you go about recruiting new band members that become steadies and introducing them to your audience? Meaning, as an entrepreneur, I've lost key people that have been with me for years, and I'm like, oh no, I can't believe you're leaving. What am I going to do?
Yeah. It's I'm grateful that we're all still in touch. As I said, we made that record. Now it's 2 years. It was right now. I just saw on Facebook memories 2 years ago. This week we were still in the studio, and it feels like, hey, we'll do that again. And we honestly we didn't get to tour on that record because of COVID. So there will be Pat McGee Band reunion shows throughout the rest of this year and next year. So we do still play together now. Jonathan, the original piano player, we still tour together. There was a time period where he was doing a country thing. And I'm happy for guys to go and do their thing. My band's always been about highlighting the talents of these other dudes that are incredible and all could have their own bands. Charlie lives down in Atlanta, so it's a little trickier to get him to play with us because he also works for a company, Six Man, who does rock cruises all over the world. So he's always on a boat with some huge artist, and we just don't tour enough to keep everyone, employed all the time. Patrick McAloon is a new guy, and he's 11 years into it. So,
and it's funny because I don't think of him as a new guy because he's been around so long.
Yeah, he's the new guy. Now, if you may have seen us with a bass player that wasn't John Small for a certain Ramshead show, because John.
I only remember John Smalls with his cowboy hat and the cigarette.
Yeah, John still plays with us. So I definitely, there was a phase there where we went a little bit more electric, and between the record labels, we were starting to make more of just an electric sound. It's just what I was into at the time. And we got away from the more harmony based music. But I'm always kind of finding my way back to the original thing. So I'm thankful that we're all still friends. It's all good. It's no bad blood. It's easy to hey, let's do this. And that record was the easiest record we've ever made and the most fun we've ever had. Because the other ones were exciting, but they were sort of stressful because the weight of the Warner Brothers deal, or just I don't know, something about it was, we were nitpicking. And this was more of a celebration of everyone's talents. John Small, you're a monster on the bass. Play whatever you want to play, and no one is here to tell you don't play that, or we'd rather hear this. And that applied to everybody. So everyone, I feel on the new record, got to sort of show what they do.
That's cool.
And we'll be doing more of that. So yeah, it is tough to lose people, but I look at some of these bands, U2 and the Police got back together, but some bands that just sort of, they sort of rely on that. I think even as simple as Adam Clayton is on bass, you got to hear him play that simple bass part in U2. If some other guy was over there playing it, you might be like, this isn't U2. But I get it. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, the expression people always throw around is, hey, let's get the old band back together, when it's just friends getting back together. You're really doing that when you get the old band back together. So I find that to be fascinating. So you mentioned appreciate the mention of Warner Brothers. So that had to have been a huge high for you and the bandmates when you were discovered and got onto what I would have, again, as a novice, I would have considered that certainly a major label from a public perspective, as far as me as a novice. So you were there a year or two or whatever it was, and then it didn't continue. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think getting signed was not always something that we were we got to do that. It just sort of, grassroots happened that way. We had put out our 3 records, and back then CDs were selling hotcakes. It was crazy. So we were getting noticed by labels, because the labels would call the local whatever, Tower Records in whatever part of Maryland, is hey, they check on their artists, the ones that you probably have not heard of, that they're how are they selling? And then the rep from Tower Records would give them their numbers and say, well, what are you selling a lot of? And I said, this Pat McGee Band sold 37 copies this week. And they'd say, who the hell is that? What label are they on? And wow. Tower Records manager says, they're independent. Pat delivers the records here himself. His mom ships them to the store. And that was the story around the country. So we made it almost undeniable to a label to be we should check this band out. So after this, as those things come up, the bidding wars or whatever, we ended up at Warner Brothers. We were very happy with that decision. Incredible to be out in Burbank and be at that facility that I'd heard so much about growing up, and see the WBR logo on all the records I owned. This is crazy. And we did the Shine record in San Francisco, and we had never been to the West Coast as a band. We never toured out there prior to being signed. So that was exciting to be out in San Francisco. We made it with Jerry Harrison, who's in the Talking Heads. He was fantastic. It was a really, definitely a highlight. And I felt like we put our best foot forward and, was it a huge commercial success? No, but I think it sold like, I don't know, just shy of 300,000 copies. If I sold 300,000 copies of anything right now, I'd have a gold, I'd be getting a Grammy. It's like, the numbers have changed because people just don't buy music anymore. So that at the time was considered, I think they just thought, well, they're going to be like the next Hootie or Matchbox 20. So they better sell 5-10 million records. And because, so many things have to line up for that.
Right.
Radio, marketing budgets, all these things have to come into play. It can't just be about music. I had so many records in my collection that Warner Brothers would give me, and other labels would give me, and the CDs were incredible. And you're like, how are these artists not huge? And then you learned how the machine works and how it's like, ooh, only a few of them get through. So it's kind of a little bit of a lottery.
Wow.
So the Shine record did what it did, and then Warner Brothers, like every label on the planet, every 2 years they have a new regime that comes in and, oh, that president didn't, you weren't there when PNB got signed or whatever. So we made our second record with them, the Save Me record, and it came out of the gate swinging, but the Goo Goo Dolls, who are our good friends, were getting all of the radio ads that we would have got. It was Goo Goo Dolls, Michelle Branch, REM, Chili Peppers. These are all bands on Warner in the same genre as us. And like, so if you go into DC 101 in the morning in DC and like, we got this new Chili Peppers song, this new REM song, this new Linkin Park song. Hello, my son's here.
What's up, Jack?
What's up? Say hi.
Hi.
I love it.
Well, we're just doing a little video here. What do you got going on?
Is the YouTube channel almost ready?
Almost ready. Yeah, I'll let you know.
I love it.
He's working on his own YouTube channel.
That's awesome.
Imagine Jack Creates.
How old are you, Jack?
Jack, how old are you?
7.
7. There you go.
Yeah,
I have well, you met him, Pat. I have a 6.5-year-old now. When you met him, he wasn't. But no, I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a trip. He is a trip. Anyway, by the way,
So-
that YouTube channel is going to be private.
That's all right. That's all right. No worries.
I'm not trying to create the next Nickelodeon star.
No, I totally get it. I get asked that question. You're nicer than me. I keep telling them no.
Well, I've told him for 5 years. Long story short, so the Warner Brothers deal came up as hey, if you guys aren't going to support this second single for the Save Me album, we'd like to get out of our contract. Like, we don't just shelf this record. We're a band we're a touring machine.
Right.
Our fans are expecting new music. I don't want to get wrapped up in that Save Me record took 4 years of recording out of my life because it got re-signed by another label out of Texas. And that was another like, oh, we're getting re-signed. Maybe this will give it some life. And they spent a bunch of money on videos and we stayed on the road with that record. But that was a long period for the band. If I look back on it and go, man, that was the stretch where we didn't put out enough music and we were running on all cylinders at that point. So if anything, the label sort of slowed the band down.
I get that.
You sort of handed it over on a silver platter. Like, it's like having your own company that's just incredible. Like, here it is. Don't screw it up. It's already doing what it needs to do. Just elevate it. And instead, let's put it over here and stare at it for 3 years and see how we can tweak it. That always baffled me, and I still have some great friends there, but and it's never one person's fault or whatever. It's
Well, dude, that's the same stuff that, my wife and I or anybody would read about when it comes to movies and TV shows that get greenlit and then they get paused and then it sits there for 6 years on somebody's desk and nobody touches it. And it's got to be demoralizing as the writer or the person whose baby it was to get that out there and it just sits there. So I respect that where you said, hey, we're touring. Let's, if you're not interested in helping us the way that we originally signed up for, let's just part ways. I get that.
Yeah, it was. When I hear that as well from big time movie writers or actors that are finally put a movie out, and you're like, this movie's incredible. They're like, yeah, we started making it 4 years ago and it got shelved. You're like, even you at your level, you get told to take a hike for a while. Like, it's incredible because it's when you combine art with business folks, it's tough, man. It's tough because it's hard to find the good ones that are like see both sides of it, you know. So,
I get that. I get it.
I'm
So let
happy
me,
that I'm happy that I'm still making records, and those records meant a lot to people who picked them up. And someone be like, "Hey, dude, I was in Walgreens last night and Beautiful Ways came on. So cool." I'm like,
it happens.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
That's awesome. So let me, as we start to wrap up, a couple last questions here. One, have you ever, as you've gotten more experienced in your career, as a touring and all the stuff you've gone through, all the experience, you just shared a story that that people should know about in advance. Have you ever thought about developing an artist or mentoring somebody and helping them find a label or not find a label, or kind of forgo some of the things that you went through that maybe you might not have gone through had you had somebody guiding you?
I've thought of that, and I have lended a hand to a lot of people, and people are always asking me, what should I do for this? I'm like, all right, well, back in my day, I just said, get a house gig and affect people in your town, and then go to 10 miles over and do it again. And I know people who have never performed in front of a human being, and they're making 150 grand a year playing like re-recording ringtones and heavy metal guitar things. You're like, and they that's what they do. They sit in their room just like this, and they tinker with stuff. And yeah, they're a musician and they're doing great. But if you go to tell them to go play a gig with someone, they're like, I don't know how to do that. So I don't know how I would relate to someone. I can certainly help some aspects of it, but I know I would lose so much sleep over being a manager. I mean, a manager is like one of the worst gigs ever because it's all encompassing. It's like, take me and make me a star. And like, oh my God. And of course, a lot of people are like, well, should I go on The Voice? Should I go on American Idol? Like, I know a lot of people that have been on The Voice and Idol, and it's no different than getting a gig that lasts for a little bit and then it's over. And then when it's over, it's over. And you got to take what you can get from it and move on. But don't think it's going to make you the next Kelly Clarkson. And she's still working her tail off anyway. So it's a tough business. And I'm always willing to answer any questions anyone has, but it may not apply to someone who's 15 or 22. It's like, dude, how do I tour? Like, well, that's an easy thing. Just get a band together and, hopefully you can live off peanut butter sandwiches for a while and get out there and play. But I don't know, man. It's tough business.
So it's funny because you read my liner notes, joking, of course, but I was going to ask you about the American Idols and the Voices of the world. If they were around when you were breaking out in the mid 90s, and maybe they were, I don't know, in different capacity, I guess, Star Search type shit. But would you have gone on that? Would you have considered it? Would it have ever entered your mind if you look back on it?
I don't think so. It doesn't speak to me. I'm more of a school of, performing, in the moment, classic rock, like inspired things, and I've never thought, oh man, you're a great guitarist or you're a great singer. I don't consider myself that. It's more of I want to be a songwriter. I just want to create moments for people. I'd rather be on some sort of a lifestyle show than some sort of like a travel show or something cool where you're sharing experiences and enriching people's lives. And no dig on those shows, because if you can really belt it and that's what you do, then that's your talent. Go do it. But it's never been what I've hung my hat on.
I appreciate you coming on, man. You've been very generous with your time. Let me ask you, I'll plug it, of course, but from a personal experience, for anybody that knows me, I've, of course, a ton of friends and family that listen to the podcast, and other folks that are strangers. I appreciate that too. My wife and I, some of you listening might know my wife, we followed Pat McGee Band since the early days, almost the earliest days. And, I'll obviously say, go get the newest record, the latest record. sugar packet. It's amazing. He was generous enough to sign me a copy here when he came to my house. But I would encourage you to check out, if you're of my age or so, check out some of the older stuff. General Admission live and Revel and Save Me's a little bit newer. It's incredible, but check out From the Wood. Like, there's so many great albums from the beginning. PatMcGeeBand.net, PatMcGee.net. I feel like you used to have a website that was called Pat McGee Band, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think PatMcGeeBand.com still takes you to PatMcGee.net.
Oh, okay. There you go.
But you can find me, and literally, if I could turn my cameras around, I'd show you. Just over there is an entire shipping department of all my merch and all the CDs that I ordered. It's funny, some of them have like Tower Record stickers on them, because when all the record stores closed, they ship them back to either me or back to Warner, and Warner sends them to me. So I'll have like Sam Goody, 1999. I'm like,
oh my God,
bought this thing, man.
That's classic. $20.
$20 for 9 songs. Like, you guys were overpriced these CDs so bad. So anyway, yeah, check it out. I'll be the one that weighs it on my scale and packages it up and writes you a handwritten note, and you'll get it at your house. Even if you're just curious, you want to check out some music, if you still have a compact disc player in your car, or I don't know. But
well, everybody go support, everybody talks about support local, support small business. I mean, Pat McGee Band, it's a small business for all I'm concerned, support
Absolutely.
them, follow them on Instagram, Facebook, share their content, YouTube, wherever that is. And get some gear, get some merch, right? I respect
check
that.
out our live stuff. I'm about to get back on the virtual show tour thing. I haven't done anything since New Year's Eve, but I'm going to start doing that. And I strive to do something very different on these shows. I'm not just sitting here playing songs. It's like
I've been on them. I see it.
And the new one's going to be even more. There's a lot of angles to it, and I'm excited. Like, I started this thing with my daughter where she plays music and I play music, and we talk about it, and it's super fun. So that'll be part of the new show. It's just, I want to show more than just here's some old songs, because
That's
my
awesome.
Facebook feed is a bunch of dudes playing on their couches, and that's cool. But you kind of want to. I think the human interaction is as important as the music. So just get connected with us, and maybe I'll see you on the beach at one of these festivals of mine.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I have a lot of people behind the scenes. I just hit play and ask a few questions and let you shine. No pun intended. But for all the people behind the scenes who put this together on the podcast, I appreciate you. I'm Eric Silverman. That's Pat McGee of the Pat McGee Band. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to put them in the comment section below, wherever you're watching this on social media, or if you download it on iTunes or Spotify or anywhere you consume podcasts. We appreciate that. I appreciate that. And feel free to give it a subscribe so you'll be notified of other rock stars that we have on. Probably not actual rock stars like this, but definite rock stars in my book. That's it, man. I appreciate it, Pat.
Eric, thanks for the time. Tell Meg I said what's up, and the kids.
Absolutely.
And let's plan 2.0 of that party.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the RockstarsRocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, rock stars, keep rocking.